House will come to order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very important bill to many of us and very important to my constituency. At the end of 2015, a federal court presented the Texas legislature with one of its largest and most important challenges. Quote, years of abuse, neglect, and shuttling between inappropriate placements across the state has created a population that cannot contribute to society. This was said by U.S. District Judge Janice Jack. She continued to lambast the foster care system, stating that children, quote, often age out of care more damaged than when they entered. These words, although hard to swallow, are completely valid and lamentably true. Between the years of 2009 and 2014, nearly 800 deaths were attributed to child abuse. This year, 2015, painted a particularly morbid picture of the Texas foster care system. 171 children perished at the hands of abuse and neglect in the state. More than 100,000 cases of child abuse and neglect were confirmed, and at least a dozen were lost because employees conducted poor investigations or did not do their jobs. This is a system that is in fundamental disrepair. I don't have to tell this body that the foster care challenge is one which must be confronted head-on. I don't have to tell this body the foster care challenge is one that must be done right the first time. This session, members of all political ideologies have been able to come together to correct the wrongs this state has pushed on the most vulnerable population. The work accomplished by the bipartisan House work group exemplified what this chamber can achieve through collaboration. With the work group's guidance, along with the passion of every member committed to fixing this broken system, this body has been able to pass a series of sweeping required reforms. The House has not concerned itself with the religious persuasion of a foster parent or provider. It has not concerned itself with who a foster parent loved, except to uplift the unconditional love reserved for their foster child. Members of the House have stayed focused.
Members of the House will come to order.
On the task at hand, dedicated to reversing the horrific trend of abuse, neglect, and death, which has plagued the children of Texas for too long. Now it's not the time to lose sight of these goals, members. HB 3859, while well-intentioned, blurs the goals of the legislature. Rather than addressing the findings laid before us through the bluntly accurate federal court case, which every member here is aware of, we're now taking the considerations of the providers over the best interests of the child. This body must be aware of the extremely vulnerable populations put at risk because of HB 3859. One of the vulnerable populations that would be affected by the provisions in this bill is young women of reproductive age. Affordability of and accessibility to contraceptives is a vital component to the health of young people in foster care. At a formative period, these teenagers should be focusing on their high school history exams, not worrying about the cost of diapers. Accessibility to contraceptives is a crucial aspect of healthy and responsible well-being for young women. This bill allows for potential foster parents to be turned away if their beliefs about reproductive health conflicts with those of a foster care provider. The numbers show today that young women and men in foster care are significantly more likely to become parents than other youths. In addition to this, Children born to foster youth are at an increased risk of entering the child welfare system. The teenage birth rate for young women in foster care is twice that of the general population. 50% of young women in foster care will become pregnant at least once by the time they reach their 19th birthday. Approximately half of the 21-year-old men aging out of foster care reported getting a partner pregnant, compared to 19% of their peers that are not in foster care. We all want young people in foster care to prioritize high school graduation, allowing them to enter a career field and begin a college education. With the sensible use of contraceptives, these young people can focus on their futures. The Department of Family and Protective Services provides CPS rights to all children in foster care. Among these provisions outlined in these rights, a child must be safe, cared for, have access to medical treatment, and to the extent possible, have a normal life. Quote, "A child has the right to be treated fairly." This is in the Foster Children's Bill of Rights. How can we claim to be treating a lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender child fairly if that child has to be bounced from provider to provider because no one will serve them because of who they are? Quote, "A child has the right not to get pressured to give up their child for adoption." This is also in the Bill of Rights. How can this legislature ensure this right is upheld if a provider or parent can simultaneously teach a child that their decision to terminate a pregnancy or even use contraception is a sin in the eyes of God? How can we ensure a child's religious needs are met as stated in the CPS rights if believing in a certain faith becomes a prerequisite to saving them from abuse, neglect, and abandonment? How can we lose sight of the finish line here, members? Children are hurting in this state. As this state struggles with the pervasive issues of sexual orientation and gender identity, discrimination, teen homelessness, teen pregnancy, substandard health care, and poverty, it's vital we do not institute a law that will hurt everyone involved in more ways than one. This body must stay the course. Please don't fail these children now, members. Please stand in opposition to HB 3859, and I thank you for your time.